Hello, my name is Miranda Hernandez, and in this presentation, I will be talking about Texas politicians and psychedelic drugs for combat veterans. This presentation covers how Texas lawmakers are responding to the use of psychedelic drugs to treat PTSD in combat veterans. It focuses on state legislation like House Bill 1802, which allowed medical research on psychedelics, including MDMA and psilocybin and ketamine, showing high rates of PTSD and suicide among veterans, as well as strong results from MDMA-assisted therapy, examining the political disagreement and highlights unusual cooperation between parties in Texas. Now let's talk about the timeline. During this timeline shows the key development in Texas regarding psychedelic therapy for combat veterans since 2004. Between 2004 and 2010, there was almost no public or political discussion in Texas about using psychedelic drugs like MDMA or psilocybin to treat PTSD. Veterans struggling with trauma mainly rely on traditional treatment like talk therapy and medication, even though many of those weren't working well for everyone. From 2011 to 2017, national research into psychedelic assisted therapy started gaining more attention, especially studies showing how NDMA could help veterans in treatment resistant PTSD. But in Texas, lawmakers and public officers were still pretty quiet. The issue wasn't only on legislature mind, yet through the rising of veteran suicide rates were starting to raise concerns. In 2018, the Right to Try Act passed at the federal level. That law allows people with life-threatening conditions to try experimental treatment, not yet fully approved. While this wasn't a Texas law, it did influence conversations here, especially as veterans began pushing for more access to alternative therapies. In 2021 was the major turning point. Texas passed House Bill 1802, a bipartisan bill that directs the state health agencies to study the potential medical benefits of psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine, especially for veterans dealing with PTSD. It was sponsored by the Republican Alex Dominguez and Democrats and supported by Republicans like the Senator Donna Campbell. This was the first official step by Texas to take the science behind psychedelics seriously and explore their medical potential. In 2022, UT Austin Dale Medical School began on working on the research authorized by the House of 1802. This was the first time we saw academic institutions in Texas begin real partnerships with state agencies to study psychedelics as mental health treatment. In 2023, there was even more attention to this. Veteran groups and some lawmakers pushed for new bills that will expand access and funding for clinical trials. Even though no new laws passed that year, it showed that support for the issue was growing, and it becoming less political risky to talk about it. And last year in 2024, research was starting to share early findings that look promising, especially for veterans with severe PTSD. Texas lawmakers began openly supporting controlled therapeutic use of psychedelics, meaning not recreational use but supervised medical treatment. However, process is still limited by federal drug policy. Substances like MDMA or psilocybin are still considered illegal at the national level, so Texas can go much farther until that changes. As as of now, there haven't been any major court cases in Texas about psychedelics and veteran rights, but legal debates are likely in the future as this treatment became more available. Okay, now let's talk about the data. Let's start with the need. The Department of Veteran Affairs estimates that 11 to 20% of veterans who served in Iraq or Afghanistan experience PTSD, which is a huge number, and it doesn't even include those who go undiagnosed. On top of that, the suicide rate among veterans is about 1.5 times higher than for civilians. These numbers aren't just statistics, but they represent lives impacted by trauma and real urgency for better treatment. Now let's look at the potential of psychedelic therapy. In a phase 3 clinical trial led by a research, 67% of participants who received NDMA assisted therapy no longer met the criteria for PTSD after 3 sessions, which is not a small improvement. That's a major shift in mental health outcome, especially for people who try everything else and still suffer. This success led to political action even here in Texas. In 2021, state lawmakers passed House Bill 1802, which directly Texas Health Agency to research psychedelic treatment for PTSD with a specific focus on veterans. What makes this law stand out is that it passes with bipartisan support, showing that this issue is bigger than any party lines. It's about public health and veteran care. That research is already underway. In 2022, UT Austin, the medical school, launched a center for psychedelic research and therapy, the first of its kind in Texas, using funding from House 1802. Their work focused on directly on treating PTSD, depression, and anxiety, all conditions that many veterans face. This may take us one of the first red states to fund psychedelic research backed by the state of government, which is a big deal, especially since drug policy is usually more controversial in conservative states. But because the research focused on veterans and medical use only, it gained bipartisan support. Okay, now let's talk about partisan conflict. We might expect a lot of political disagreement about psychedelic drugs in Texas, but when the focus is helping veterans with medical treatment, the situation changes. In 2021, Texas passed the House of Bill of 1802, which allowed research on psychedelic therapy for veterans with PTSD. This bill has support from both Democrats and Republicans. It was introduced by Democrat Representative Alex Dominguez and supported by Republican Senator Donna Campbell, who is also a doctor. This kind of teamwork across parties is rare, especially on drug related issues. Still, some conservative lawmakers have concern. They point out that drugs like MDMA and psilocybin are illegal under federal law, and they worry about potential misuse. Some law enforcement groups and religious organizations are also cautious about this treatment because the law limits psychedelic use to medical research for veterans is seen as a serious and focused effort. There is no effort to legislate recreational use, which helps keep the political conflict low, which also helps the discussion center of science and healthcare instead of cultural conflicts. Now let's talk about forecast. Looking ahead, I believe Texas Republicans and Democrats will continue to find common ground on psychedelic therapy, but mostly when it focuses on helping veterans and staying with medical research. The success of House of Bill 1802 proves that this issue can bring both sides together. The fact that Democrats and the Republicans co-sponsored the bill and that it passed with broad support shows that when it comes to veteran care, politics can take a backseat, and there will be a lot of issues related with that. It also shows how cooperation has limits. If the consumption moves toward full legislation or broader access to psychedelics for general public, we'll probably see more pushback from conservative lawmakers and law enforcement groups. I believe that if Texas will likely move forward slowly but steadily as more research comes out and more veterans speak up about their success with this treatment, I think lawmakers from both parties will support expanding access as long as it's controlled and medical guided, which I believe is very rare to find issues that unite both sides from Texas. But this one, I think it has a potential because it's not about politics, it's about healing. So though full legalization probably won't happen soon, ongoing collaboration on medical research and pilot programs is expected to continue in the coming years. And that concludes my presentation. I hope y'all find it interesting and that y'all have learned something. And thank you for watching.